Overall, the program of abducting and holding foreigners in North Korea aimed to bring new skills to the country. Some were even recruited to be used for espionage.
The whole story of kidnappings began in the 50s with South Korean and Japanese fishermen who mysteriously disappeared. By the 70s, this had become part of the national policy. Statistics from 2010 indicate that North Korea kidnapped a total of 3,692 people, of whom only 3,257 were returned to South Korea. Of this number, 88% were kidnapped to brainwash them and show that North Korea was not such a bad country, and 12% became spies.
But these are all statistics. There are no newer ones. Ultimately, Kim Jong Un had to admit that the kidnapping program was ineffective, and it supposedly ceased operations.
Imagine that even in 2002, the then Prime Minister of Japan, Junichiro Koizumi, under public pressure, traveled to North Korea to receive a public apology from Kim Jong Un for the abductions of Japanese citizens.
This was an unprecedented step because Kim Jong Un had created a personality cult around himself. He was considered an almighty leader, and there was severe punishments for dissent, so apology for the abduction was something unique in the country's history.
Anyone who disagreed with the personality cult, anyone who tried to challenge the regime or expressed doubts about its legitimacy, faced the harsh hand of the regime. They were sent to a vast gulag system spread across the country, not to mention executions.
Nevertheless, in January 1992, North Korea and South Korea signed a declaration on denuclearizing the peninsula. Both states agreed not to manufacture, possess, store, or deploy nuclear weapons on their territories. Moreover, the leaders of both Korea agreed to conduct mutual inspections to ensure compliance with the terms of this agreement.
It seemed that the situation was improving. Even in June 2000, a historic inter-Korean summit took place, which contributed to a thaw in relations between the two countries. This involved trade issues and family reunifications. The world breathed a sigh of relief.
And in December 2002, North Korea announced the resumption of its nuclear weapons program and the expulsion of all independent UN inspectors. Naturally, they unilaterally terminated the agreement signed with South Korea.
In 2005, Pyongyang made an official statement that it was producing nuclear weapons for protection against the United States. And a year later, on October 9, 2006, they conducted their first successful tests. This led to sanctions, criticism, threats, and attempts to negotiate. It all mixed into one big mess that only further complicated the situation and did not lead to a resolution.
Against this backdrop, North Korea recognized its intelligence services. The new agency took over the work of previous agencies and expanded its powers somewhat. Its name, the General Reconnaissance Bureau, or RGB for short.
They immediately began sending spies to the United States. However, doing this unnoticed was quite difficult, primarily due to their appearance. Americans would quickly suspect them, so they monitored Washington in two ways. First, from a distance in cyberspace, and second, by recruiting people of Asian appearance in the US.
By the way, Chinese intelligence uses similar tactics. If you want to video on this, write in the comments. In general, China became a mentor for North Korea intelligence services in many aspects, especially in training and organizing work.
North Korea is a regime that surrounds itself with hatred and nuclear missiles. While the country's leadership builds its destructive policies, its citizens suffer. This state and all its allies are the devil in pure form. And in 2011, the blockbuster-loving almighty leader and dictator of North Korea, Kim Jong Un, died. The whole country wept at his funeral. This news quickly spread around the world, as did the news that his son, Kim Jong Un, would become the new head of North Korea.
Some people believed that new leader would become a reformer and turn North Korea towards civilized countries, after all.
He studied in Switzerland, loved basketball, skiing, and movies, and was a fan of Michael Jordan and Jean-Claude Van Damme. But inside, he had an even darker soul than his father. It was Kim Jong Un who tightened the regime in the country even more. Under his rule, people were executed for the smallest infractions. And it was under his leadership that North Korea began threatening the world with nuclear warheads. In matters of brutality, he was much more resolute than his father. This became evident in the early days of his rule when he had his uncle executed for doubting Kim Jong Un's ability to govern the country.
Generals responsible for nuclear tests and the organization of work at nuclear facilities were also executed. The reason: a failed warhead test.
In February 2017, he killed his half-brother. He managed to reach him in the corridor of Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Spies persuaded two women, one from India and the other from Vietnam, to play a prank on a man walking down the corridor. They sprayed his face with a nerve agent, causing the half-brother's death.
No one was held accountable for this murder.
But the assassination of Kim Jong Un caused a diplomatic scandal and ultimately led to the closure of North Korea's embassy in Malaysia.
And this was one of the few countries where the state even had representation.
Researchers explain Kim Jong Un's cruelty quite simply, saying he was raised in military traditions from childhood. On his 8th birthday, young Kim was already receiving military decorations, and all officers were ordered to address him and greet him as a commander. His father prepared him for a leadership position from an early age. Under Kim Jong Un, the cyber division of the RGB intelligence agency became a monster that would attack the world. Although the division appeared back in the 90s, it is considered one of the most effective. However, it is impossible to verify or refute this information because North Korea is a closed structure. From today, in addition to hacker attacks and monitoring citizens, their duties include blocking foreign signals.
They try to prevent the spread of hostile ideologies within their country by all available methods. It's like a closed digital state.
But even all their efforts cannot stop smugglers. Although they block the internet, they are simply unable to prevent the spread of physical media. Researchers report that about half the population has seen foreign films, listened to music, or read books at least once in their lives. This already indicates failures in the work of intelligence agencies. Under Kim Jong Un's rule, North Korean intelligence agencies not only engage in control or espionage, but also theft. Between 2017 and 2018, they stole over $500 million in digital currency, and no one can stop them yet. After all, the network in the country is closed, and no one has managed to penetrate North Korea's information network. And nuclear weapons are a separate story. It's no secret that North Korea constantly builds up its nuclear potential. The country has been doing this consistently, so according to official data, the dictator currently has 20 warheads. The role of intelligence in this story is quite special. They are personally responsible for keeping their nuclear missile development secret, and it seems they succeed because no one knows the actual number of warheads.
North Korean intelligence is a very strange phenomenon in the intelligence community. Such agents are called pocket agents because, in addition to their main global work,
they are also known for conducting cyber operations. North Korean hackers have become notorious for their large-scale and cunning cyber attacks. Let's look at some interesting facts about their operations. North Korean hackers attack not only banks, but also media companies, governments, military organizations, and even charities. They can prepare for attacks for months or even years, meticulously studying their targets. North Korea's cyber operations are state-funded to help overcome economic sanctions. North Korea selects talented children for hacker training from a young age. North Korean hackers collaborate with other international cybercriminal groups.
They may recruit company employees to gain access to critical information and destroy it.
In 2014, the giant company Sony Pictures was filming a comedy about two guys who traveled to North Korea to interview Kim Jong Un. The film itself was mediocre, but Lazarus took it as an insult to the Communist Party and defended their leader's name in a very specific way. Gigabytes of leaked employee emails, leaked new movies, 75% of the company's servers destroyed, blackmail of the CEO with his severed head on the screensaver of all company employees, apparently in the best traditions of The Godfather. As a result, Sony canceled the film's release, faced numerous lawsuits, and suffered losses of $35 million. Then, in 2016, there was the attack on the Central Bank of Bangladesh, where Lazarus used phishing techniques and malware to gain access to the bank's systems and steal over $80 million. This case demonstrated that even state institutions are no barrier for Lazarus. Next, the WannaCry attack in 2017. A virus sent via email encrypted the data of 300,000 computers worldwide and demanded a ransom. Large companies and even the supergiant Microsoft were affected. A funny fact, or rather not so funny, is that North Korea sent this virus even to countries they supposedly had warm relations with, like China and Russia. There's no way to trace it, of course, but this precedent shows that for Lazarus, there's no such thing as friendly countries.
These operations demonstrate the high professionalism and resourcefulness of the Lazarus Group. This dictatorship ready to do anything to spread its ideas.
Despite the strict control and propaganda, cracks in the regime's iron grip occasionally show.
For example, North Korea has struggled with economic sanctions that have crippled its economy and led to a scarcity of resources.
The sanctions, imposed by the United Nations and supported by various countries, aim to pressure North Korea into abandoning its nuclear ambitions.
The regime's paranoia extends beyond its borders, leading to a pattern of aggressive actions and provocations on the international stage.
North Korea's missile tests and nuclear threats are part of a broader strategy to assert its sovereignty and deter perceived enemies, primarily the United States and South Korea.
In recent years, the international community has been on high alert as North Korea has continued to develop its ballistic missile capabilities.
These tests are not only a show of force, but also a means of advancing their technology, making their weapons more accurate and capable of reaching longer distances. Their cooperation with Russia during the war in Ukraine, not only through the production, but also the testing of weapons, demonstrates their willingness to collaborate with terrorists and profit from any opportunity.
While the regime insists that these developments are for defensive purposes, the global community views them as a significant threat.
The potential for miscalculation or accidental escalation is a constant concern, particularly as North Korea's communication with the outside world remains limited and unpredictable.
Diplomatic efforts have been inconsistent, with periods of heightened attention followed by brief moments of dialogue.
The historic summits between Kim Jong Un and then U.S. President Donald Trump, along with South Korean President Moon Jae-in, were notable for their symbolism, but ultimately failed to achieve lasting solutions.
The summits showed a rare willingness from the North Korean leader to engage with the international community.
However, the lack of concrete agreements or follow-through has left many skeptical of the regime's intentions. The continued development of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles suggests that North Korea is not yet ready to give up its most powerful bargaining chips.
As Kim Jong Un consolidates his power, the internal dynamics of North Korea remain opaque.
While there are signs of economic reforms and some cultural openings, the regime's core remains authoritarian and repressive. The ruling elite, protected by the military and intelligence agencies, maintains strict control over the population.
The future of North Korea is uncertain. The country's leadership seems committed to maintaining its current course.
Despite the economic hardships and international isolation, the question remains whether internal pressures, such as economic difficulties or public dissent, might eventually force a change. As the international community continues to navigate its relationship with North Korea, one thing is clear: the regime's actions and policies will continue to shape regional and global security. Whether through diplomacy, economic sanctions, or military deterrence, the world must remain vigilant in dealing with a regime that has proven itself both unpredictable and dangerous.
Meanwhile, the world continues to monitor North Korea's actions. Concern about potential military conflicts remain high, especially considering the region's instability.
However, diplomacy still remains the best tool for preventing conflicts and finding solutions. It is crucial now for the international community not only to respond to provocations from North Korea, but also to seek ways to influence the situation through dialogue, economic incentives, and joint efforts with other regional countries. This is not an easy process. It requires patience, strategy, and an understanding of the regime's complex nature.
Today, many people around the world hope that North Korea will find its way to a more open society,
where people can freely express their opinions and have access to external information. This is not an easy task, but the international community is ready to support any efforts in this direction.
In conclusion, North Korea remains a complex and unpredictable player on the international stage.